plaintiffs, yourselves.
Talk right into the microphone.
Okay. Congratulations to yourself, the
Thanks.
plaintiffs, the lawyers, and the entire team that put together the case. Were there any difficult moments during your cross-examination? Was there something that you did not expect? Any line of questioning?
Yeah, there was something that I did not expect, but it wasn't a difficult moment. And that is that during the trial, I talked about the blood clotting, showed some of the slides I showed you. I talked about the flagellum, showed some of the slides I showed you, and I talked about human chromosome number 2. During my cross-examination, I wasn't asked about any of it. In other words, I expected them to fight on the science, not a single challenge on the scientific issue. And that, because I was really prepared for that. And that came as a surprise. And instead, they combed old editions of my textbooks to look for phrases that they could get me to say were equivalent to intelligent design, or they looked for the website that I maintain for my university course, where I have some links if people want to see what the intelligent design controversy is about. They can go to this link. Isn't that the same thing, Dr. Miller, as the statement that the Dover Board of Education penned? And I didn't think so, and I explained why. But it was actually a pretty easy cross-examination from my point of view.
I was very heartened by the Dover decision by Judge Jones. It was sort of one of those positive moments of the year. But I have to think that the creationist movement is going to come up with something else, that there's going to be...
They already have.
Or a sudden emergence theory. Is that, or is there going to be something... What do you think is the next assault going to be from creationists? Because I think intelligent design is dead.
Yeah,
so what's next?
Okay. You've got it right here. And that is, the next thing is, we don't want to teach intelligent design. We want to teach critical analysis of evolution. That is the next thing. And that is what is being pushed in a whole variety of states. In Kansas, for example, they may have changed the definition of science, but the Kansas Board is adamant saying, comb the standards. We don't mention intelligent design. All we do is critically analyze evolution. So I think critical analysis of evolution is the next step, and you've got it right here.
If I may add one thing, we've been talking about the science, and that's quite appropriate, but I would maintain that until the theological presuppositions that underlie the attacks on evolution are addressed, and they need to be addressed by churches, by clergy, that this anti-evolution movement simply is not going to go away, and there will keep on being new avatars of intelligent design, creationism, or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I mean, critical analysis is nearly as brilliant a moniker as intelligent design, because they say, well, how come the scientists are against critical analysis, right? How could that be? And of course, if you look at the content of the lesson plan, it's not critical and it's not analysis. It's an attempt to convince students to uncritically swallow wholesale, outright lies about the content of science. And you don't have to take my word for it. And indeed, the board didn't 2 years ago. But we now have the records. And their own science experts at the Department of Education in Ohio told them, we have the sheets where they said it. They said, the underlined sentence is a lie. This is wrong. This is inaccurate. This is crackpot. This is religion. This is creationism. It's all in there. It's very, very similar to the Dover case, although they weren't quite as dramatic in their public statements. That's the only difference.
Another in front here. Question.
You talked about the dichotomy between, or the false dichotomy between religious belief and science. And presumably the fear of evolution is based on the belief that if you believe in evolution, then the Bible must be wrong.
That's one aspect, but there are others. There are other concerns as well. Okay.
So is, as you alluded to, perhaps part of the social and public issue here, a better understanding of the Bible and what it means. After all, there are two stories of creation in the book of Genesis, which is up front, which is perhaps as far as people get in reading the Bible. Do you think that modern reading, modern study and scholarly interpretation of how the Bible evolved and how religious belief evolved is the other side of this equation?
I'm tempted to defer to Reverend Murphy on this, but I certainly would agree, although I would look back at the history of perhaps the past 500 years of Christendom, and I would suggest that perhaps expecting Christians to come to consensus about the meaning of the Bible is a hopeless quest.
Well, but I would agree that is and that's really one of the things that I was referring to earlier, that the basically more theological literacy, critical reading of Scripture is a very important component of what I was talking about. I think we probably have time for about 2 more questions. One back here.
It's a technical question. I mean, do biologists, when considering evolution, consider the time for these complex, smaller systems to combine together? Do you consider the time interval, like, does it happen fast in certain cases, or does it happen slow in certain organizations?
I didn't quite understand everything you said. Talking about viruses?
Talking about the time
complex.
required.
You were talking about complex systems.
Oh, okay.
Like, so, I mean, I was just curious, like, so if
Yeah,
there
sure.
is an intelligent designer, did he take time for some cases to combine and bring come up with a complex system, or?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a good question. I can answer this very directly in a couple of ways. We don't know how long it took for the blood clotting system or the bacterial flagellum to evolve, but we can look, for example, at how long it has taken entirely new genes to evolve. And one of my examples that I always love, I didn't show the slide tonight, I can show it to you afterwards if you like, is that in the 1970s, a group of Japanese scientists were hanging around a chemical factory, and there was a big waste dump of plastic waste, and they noticed there was growing on the surface of it what looked like a lawn of bacteria. But this made no sense to them, because what was being dumped in here was nylon polymer waste, and that's synthetic and bacteria can't grow on it. Nonetheless, there they were. And they took the bacteria, they cultured them in the laboratory, and they discovered that these were Pseudomonas bacteria that had evolved an entirely new enzyme called nylonase. And it breaks down nylon. And this enzyme actually evolved from junk DNA, from repetitive DNA, into which there had been a little flipping around of the genetic code, so a promoter popped up, transcribed it, and then evolved an enzyme with more and more activity. How long did it take for this entirely new protein to evolve? And obviously very great selective advantage, because now the bacteria could grow where they couldn't before. Less than 65 years. And the reason we can say that with some degree of certainty is that it was only 65 years ago that nylon was synthesized for the first time. So that's one example. My other favorite example is a 7-step pathway with 7 different enzymes that breaks down 2,4-dinitrotoluene. This is one of the components of TNT. It's an explosive. This, too, was first synthesized in the 1930s, and 2 years ago, an Air Force laboratory in Florida was able to show that there were soil bacteria in the grounds of Air Force bases that had soil contaminated with this explosive residue that had evolved a 7-step pathway by co-opting enzymes from other biochemical pathways that serve different purposes to break this down. And this clearly had also happened since the 1930s. So where you have the proper opportunity, evolution can work very quickly and can produce some remarkable changes.
One final question.
I'm
2?
Curious, and maybe Patricia's the one who can answer this. It was a group of parents in Dover who brought the legal suit against the school board. Is there a similar action here in Ohio? You're saying what Ohio has done is illegal. Are parents or citizens out there challenging it legally?
I'll let Patricia answer in detail, but I'll answer it quickly from my amateurish understanding of the law. To file a lawsuit, you have to have standing, which is to say if you sue a government agency saying its actions are unconstitutional, you have to first show that you were injured by that government action. So all of the 11 plaintiffs in Dover were parents with kids in the classroom, either having that statement read to them or about to have it read to them. That was their standing. An ordinary citizen in Dover with nobody in the public schools could not have gone to federal court and filed that lawsuit. So you need some degree of standing. My guess would be that parents in Ohio whose students were being made to use that lesson plan or be testing on it would have similar standing if they wished to file a lawsuit.
Not all of the parents in Dover had kids that were in high school. Some of them had little kids, so you only have to intend to send your kids to the school. Right. But the issues of standing and things like that, if someone's interested in being involved in an action like this, I can put them in touch with the folks that are organizing. So you can always email me at evolution@case.edu, and I can put you in touch with the folks that are doing it. I don't know all these issues of standing, but I know folks who do.